Brian Ward. I was appointed to the town council about 3 weeks ago. I joined because I wanted to improve housing costs in town, among with other things, but basically try to find ways to make housing more affordable in town. I was a reporter for 2 years on Stratham and Newmarket Town Council, so that's basically my experience has been from the other side of the desk, so this is a little bit odd. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Next item on the agenda is Diane Hardy. She's the town planner. She's also the person that provides her on the capital improvement program. I asked her to come to us and talk to us a little bit about what the capital improvement program is and what her expectations are for timelines. With that, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here this evening. I appreciate the invitation. I'm going to talk to you this evening about Newmarket's capital improvement program. Just to give you a little bit of background, I'm the town planner in Newmarket, and I work with both planning board and zoning board, and have this great occasion on the with the CIP process. So this is my 15th CIP that I've been involved with, and each year it gets better, right, Joe? There you go. Thank you. Next slide, please. Can they hear me? Next slide, please. There you go. So what I'd like to do this evening is give you an, oops, it's going too fast now. Can she go backwards? Can you go back? Thank you. What I wanted to do this evening is give you an overview of what the capital improvements plan is, what the benefits are to the community, the legal framework, and what we talk about capital projects and equipment and what those definitions are, and what our annual process is, and how this is all supposed to tie in with the town's master plan. So that's what I'm going to attempt to cover for you this evening. Next slide, please. Okay, what is the CIP? CIP is an acronym, of course, and it is a long-range planning document, and it outlines the anticipated expenditures for capital projects and equipment over a period of at least 6 years. Next slide, please. The goal of the CIP is to implement planning goals for the community with specific projects, programs, and improvements. And it's aimed at assuring that we have adequate capacity in the town's infrastructure to accommodate future growth. And that's how it ties in with the master plan. It links local investments in capital, in infrastructure, with land use planning and economic development. Next slide, please. There are numerous benefits to the community. Stated there, public health and safety is addressed, anticipates demands of growth, improves communication between board members and departments and committees, avoids undue property tax overages, and supports economic development and provides a foundation for the town's growth management and impact fee program. Next, please. So what is the legal framework for the CIP? Of course, you all know that we're creatures of the state. We're entitled and authorized only to do what the state RSAs or the state law tells us we can do. And the capital improvements program is under RSA 674, Chapter 5. And it gives planning boards the authority to adopt a master plan to prepare for capital improvements over the next 6 years. Next, please. It's based on information that we solicit, if you will, from the town departments and agencies of the community. It's also information as well. They're partners with us in this process. And it takes into account public facility needs that are dictated or indicated by the master plan. And the process, and the CIP committee tries to establish some urgency and recommend a time sequence for implementation of those improvements. And in doing so, we have a rating system, if you will, and the projects that come to us, we rank them urgent, compulsory, necessary, or desirable. Next, please. And what it strives to do is provide an adequate level of capital expenditures to keep taxes expenditures at an affordable rate and to keep the tax rate relatively stable, to balance out those ebbs and flows, if you will. The the CIP committee, the capital improvements plan is related to the goals and recommendations of the town's master plan. They're integral pieces. Next, please. And of course, the CIP is part of the town's budget process. As you know, we have a town manager form of government, and the town manager makes recommendations to the town council and the budget committee, and then ultimately for the annual budget as part of the meeting that comes up in March. Next, please. The CIP committee submits recommendations only to the town council and the budget committee. It's an advisory document, and it becomes part of the annual budget process. Next, please. Under the New Hampshire state laws, in order for a community such as Newmarket to adopt and have an impact fee program, which we do, you need to have a CIP that's adopted according to the state laws. And the costs of the CIP are to recover the costs of capital improvements which are necessitated by new developments. So we're looking to address growth in a long-range view. And in Newmarket, we have 4 types of impact fees for recreation, public schools, water, and sewer facilities. Next, please. So, in the town's charter, there is a capital improvements program that has been established and includes quite a large group with representatives from the town council, the planning board, the budget committee, of course, the school board, and 2 members at large from the community. And they are charged with preparing the annual fee, and they're granted all the powers under the state law. Next, please. So in the town's capital improvements plan, there's 2 types. There's a capital equipment, which is a tangible item that is non-reoccurring, has a useful life of more than 3 years, and an aggregate cost of more than $10,000. There's also a capital improvement project, which has a useful life of more than 10 years and costs at least $50,000. And we ask our department heads to group their projects in those 2 categories. Next, please. And I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the things we see for projects that come before us. Upgrading the wastewater treatment plant, acquiring and testing well sites, reconstruction of roadways, upgrading the town's stormwater system, ADA accessibility improvements to town and school facilities, and it can also include engineering studies and master plans and cost estimating. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for a tangible project, bricks and mortar as we call it. It can also be used for studies. Next, please. The list goes on. Replacement of vehicles for the police department, fire department, gear, dispatch equipment, playground equipment for recreation, and of course the array of equipment that our Public Works Department uses in conducting their operations. Next, please. So the master plan is sort of this collective vision of what the residents of Newmarket have for the community, looking 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years down the road. And one of the things that's essential is that there's public participation in that process. And we do this through public meetings. And a couple of years ago, we had a visioning session where we engaged the public in a series of brainstorming activities. And that becomes sort of the foundation, if you will, for the vision statement that's one of the requirements in the master plan. Next, please. And there has to be a relationship between the master plan and the projects. And I'm not going to go through each and every one here, but this gives you an idea of the types of things that projects we've looked at over the years in the different departments. Next, please. and it covers the full range of municipal services, and of course, schools is also included in that list as well. Next, please. There you go. Public Works, municipal buildings, the library. Next, please. The dam, McAllen Dam, which is now completed after 10 years of working on that project. But that was one of our capital improvement projects that we'd been saving for many years. And of course, dispatch equipment. So that gives you an idea of the range of projects that we get involved in reviewing. Next, please. I wanted to just show you this. At the end of the day, this is what the CIP looks like. And I'm going to I have one copy. I also have a link, so if you want to look at it online, it's on the town's website, you can do so. But I'll just pass it around and you can take a look and gives you an idea of the type of information we request from our department heads, the type of financial analyses that are conducted, and what the end product looks like. And this should be a tool not only for the town council in their budget deliberations, but also yours as well. Just to give you an idea, last year we had 51 requests from our department heads and the schools, and that for the town requests it was approximately $2.2 million. A lot of money, a lot of projects out there. The school request was very meager this past year because, of course, as you know, the year before we had a major town meeting and school budget requests for renovations to the high school and the elementary school. So they were rather shy in the past year and moving forward with more projects, and they're completing some of their projects right now. So at the end of the day, after the CIP committee finished doing their review, they wielded back some of these projects, and so the total recommendation was for about $2.4 million in requests. That was last year. And just to give you an idea, not all of these projects got funded through the process. Of course, the town manager has the first opportunity to make cuts, then he submits it to the town council and the budget committee, and it goes through your process. So last year, the actual amount of money that was set aside for capital reserve funds was about $500,000. And projects that were funded with the road improvements in town, water and wastewater projects, and the master plan was one of them that was funded. Every year we set aside about $10,000 for the town's master plan to update it, and we're looking at doing that in the next couple of years because we're long overdue for that. So next, please. So what is the process? So it's about that time of year when we start the process. Early in August, we get a request out to the town departments, ask them to submit their proposals to us, and you'll see the forms that are in the report. We ask them to give us pictures and to establish the need for the project, so we have some good information to work with. And usually the CIP committee convenes at the beginning of September, and sometimes there'll be site visits to the town facilities, especially for newcomers to the process. The committee studies each one and then deliberates them and prepares recommendations. And at the end of the day, it forwards them to the town manager. And we try to condense that process so that we have something to the town manager by October 1st. So it's a pretty short time frame, but we work really hard for about 6 weeks and get it together and make our recommendations known. Next, please. So I guess with that, that gives you an overview. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I have given you the link, so if you're curious and want to hone in on what we did last year, you can go onto the town's website and upload the plan. I know some of the folks, Roger was on our committee last year, and Joe, they probably have their reports from last year. But at the end of the day, that's what our recommendations are, and then it goes through the regular budget process. So that's sort of in a nutshell what the CIP is, and any questions that you may have.
So, you don't turn it over to the town until October?
First, yes. Well, last year was an unusual schedule, as you know, where we're all facing the pandemic, and Zoom meetings, but we did get it in early last year, September 15th. And the idea is that that's available in advance of the town starting its budget process, which is, I think, which is when the town manager and the council start their deliberations.
When do you expect to start?
The committee's work will start in September, excuse me. Get the letters out, as I said, at the beginning of August, and we try to get all the department heads to get their stuff in before Labor, get the information out to the committee. And, we try to do it in an organized fashion. All the forms that you see, they're in a draft form at that point. And and we usually meet, weekly during the month of September so that we can meet that time frame. And that's worked out well in the past. It does require that people, have those slots of time available. Usually the committee has met in the past, like many of the people are, have full-time jobs or have other engagements. So we try to make it at the end of the day, but not so late in the day, nodding off halfway through. We do have a recording secretary, Susan Frick. I don't know if you know Susan. She works with our constant. She's our recording secretary. And of course, I work with the finance director and town questions that come up that I can't answer. My background is not in finance or accounting. My background is in community planning. So I rely on other people to help with real tough questions. That seems to have worked out well. We've had some really very good committee members who've come forward and volunteered. I was really pleased with the way our process went last year. So,
Question.
Sure.
So do you come to the board and we ask you questions?
I'm not no. What we role is more of a coordinator. Obviously, I'm coordinating this, or as I think Joe referred to as herding cattle or something, getting all the department heads to come forward. And it's hard with demanding and conflicting deadlines. But we make the information available to you to review and to discuss. And each of the department heads who are submitting the request to come and defend their proposals, as they do for their operation budgets as well. But that gives you an opportunity to ask questions. And sometimes, in this past year, the CIP committee put together a memorandum at the end of the process with some very specific recommendations to the town council and to the others that are involved in the budget. And that was the question I was going to ask you, Joe. Whatever became of all those great recommendations, but it does, it is I think a helpful process. Sometimes I know some folks get frustrated because not every project gets funded, and sometimes people question, is the project process a really valid one? But I think it forces people to look long range. And many times as we get caught up in day-to-day stuff, it's hard to, do the 30,000-foot view of where we are and where we want to go in the future. So it is a worthwhile project. And these projects come back year after year. Sometimes they're tweaked, more sophisticated budgeting that occurs the longer the project has been on the list. And so it gives people an opportunity to evaluate their goals and what really needs to be done. And I think it's been effective in some projects. We did question about staffing. And I think there is going to be, we did have a facility manager for a couple of years, Greg Miles. I don't know if you had the occasion to work with him, but he did a really great job in documenting the needs in municipal facilities and put together a very lengthy, like a 10-year plan of projects. And unfortunately, he left us last January, right before the pandemic hit. So we didn't have the benefit of his expertise in this last round. He put some projects on the list and helped us give a more comprehensive view of all the needs that the town has, so that the process is better documented, or was better documented. And we're hopeful. I understand the council, the town manager, interviewing people for that position now, and and I think it will still be a shared position between the town and the schools. But that's really critical, because, you know, when I first started this process, we didn't have a whole lot of real hard data to work with. We didn't have real sophisticated cost estimating. And Michael LaBranch, who was one of our earlier CIP members, can attest to this. We had the hardest time trying to get people to understand this is a process, and you may not get all the funding in 1 year, so you have to spread it out over time. And I think, you know, over the years, I think people have developed a better understanding of how this works and how it fits in with the budget process the town has. So, anything that I've overlooked, Joe and Roger, that I should
I have
mention?
a question. I've got
Oh.
Diane, CIP gets the documents from the department heads, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then they look at it and they make their recommendations. Who does the CIP recommend to?
Steve Fournier, the
And
town
then
manager.
from there, does Steve
And to-
recommend it to the council?
Yeah, and this is a tweak in the process that we've had in the last couple of years. There was frustration before because I think the committee didn't feel that their recommendations were being heard. So, and if they were, it was sort of at the tail end of the project. Now, early on in the process, there is a meeting between the CIP and the town council so that the town council understands what those recommendations are. And, you know, so the project's not just automatically dismissed, and some people in the past have said, gee, you know. But, you know, unfortunately, we can't fund everything, as you know, and it's a matter of prioritizing and coming up with the best plan possible.
So the town council then has the option to yay or nay
Right?
on the line items. Then where does it go?
I believe it goes, is part of the current year CIP. You know, right now, we're gonna be working on 22, 23, okay? That becomes part of the budget process. And that goes, the regular process, to, you know, town council, and then you have your budget committee meetings following that, and then the deliberative section. So from that point on, it's the same process. But not all the projects are caught in the net, so to speak.
Okay, thank you, Diane.
Sure. Hopefully that was helpful. So I guess, have you made any appointments, Joe?
Roger is the CIP,
Good, okay, excellent.
and Mike is the.
I was gonna. That's great. So we're looking at probably starting up again after Labor Day to get the process going, and maybe meeting a Tuesday or a Thursday. I don't know what you usually meet on Mondays, right? So I don't want to rob you of any of your members during regular budget meetings. And I think the planning board has made their appointments. I don't know about the schools. I haven't heard anything from them.
I'm the school.
Oh, forgive
again,
me, Gary.
I'm the school
How can I
rep from the
forget
CIP again.
that? Forgive me, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be back.
Good. Okay, well, that's helpful that we've got some veterans on the board who are familiar with the process and can help move it along. Okay. And good luck, okay? You've got your work
Thank
cut
you.
out for
Thank
you
you,
in the
Diane.
next few months, 6 months, 7 months at this point, here, before you know it. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in on hot day.
Oh, my pleasure.
Next thing on the agenda is the response from Mike, from Bill Tappan on some questions that we had. Anybody have any questions, comments? Questions, comments on the questions that Mike Tappan was, Bill Tappan was? Next thing on the agenda is the town financials for April and May. Starting next month, we should be on top of that. Next month, July, we'll actually be looking at the town and the school fiscal year end. And then after that, we should be looking at the regular monthly ones. There is nobody from the town on the school attended tonight's meeting. So what we will do is if anybody has any questions, we can develop questions and we'll send them on to the town and the school and ask them to respond. Anybody have any questions on the town side?
The only question I had was that it looks as though the town spending will be under budget. Spending may not, but revenues may be a little larger. And, it looks as though there will be some money returned from this year's budget, next year, but I can't figure out how much. You know, I don't get any feeling for what that is.
I would think that when we get the next month, when we have the year-end figures, we'll have a much better understanding of what that actually is. Questions, comments? That will move on to the school financials. Any questions, comments on the school financials?
In reading Jana's report, I'm not sure I understand exactly the terminology, but it looks as though there's going to be a substantial sum of money returned to the town from this year's school budget.
At a minimum, I think it was around $400,000.
Yeah,
from what
well,
she had.
there were some items of size, but it looks to me like it's going to be closer, like, the way I came up with this, around 1,900. Do you have anything, Gary, that you can add to that?
Oh, you said 1900?
Yeah. Well,
Or, I think,
No.
yeah, I think it's gonna be substantially more, than the 400 or 500, but I'm not sure exactly what,
yeah,
as of yet.
I mean, it was like, excuse me, 1,900, 1.9 million.
I think it's gonna be closer to, and this is just back in the envelope, I think it's gonna be closer to around 1 million.
1
I'm not sure
million.
where you get 1.9, but I remember the last,
Okay.
and these are only through June 8th, obviously, so there's
Well,
still a little bit of time left, but it's gonna be,
Except that it was the estimate of the year end, and that's what so I don't know whether I'm interpreting her report correctly or not.
Well, maybe we could get her here next meeting.
Well, we should have final
Once we have
numbers.
the final
next month.
stuff, then-
Our July meeting, we will actually have the year-end.
Right,
numbers.
yes.
Much better understanding.
I'm not sure where you came up with 1.9, but I don't think it's gonna be that high.
If I can jump in, her report dated June 8th says estimated ending expenditure budget 1.44. Now, the 331 number with the encumbrances came out to a favorable expenditure of 2.5.
Can you just clarify where you're seeing that? I'm sorry, I'm not sure what.
Clarifying where I'm seeing which number.
The 2.5, I see the 1.4.
It's on the 331 report, the quarterly report that ends in March.
Was that an earlier?
It was the one that we had from the last meeting.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't have it with me.
If I look at Jana's memorandum, where it says preliminary end-of-year estimates as of June 8th. In other words,
Right.
June 8th, they estimated what the end of the year would be, is the way I understand it.
And that's 1.4.
And, yeah, it's 1.4. there are additional items that have to do with the money that is not going to be expended from, of around 250,000 from
Oh,
what
the
was
bond interest?
the warrant Article 5 of last year. And there's another 200,000 of interest from that hasn't been allocated, will have to come back to the town. So I add those two numbers to the 1.4, which is how I come
Oh,
up with
okay, I see.
1.9.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to clarify with her, because I don't want to misspeak.
Now, I assume that the school will keep up to 5% of it,
We voted at the last meeting to do 2.5%.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're up, excuse me, as of 2017 or 18, state law changed, and we could do up to 5%. But whereas we did 2.5 last year based on state law at the time, and we haven't expended it, we decided to stick with 2.5.
Okay. And obviously, the school may recommend items in a warrant article.
Yeah,
be-
which, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
you know,
we've discussed that.
But, okay. But it's going to be a substantial number.
It should be,
Yeah.
yeah. And last year was fairly substantial numbers.
Yeah. Except we can't count on it every year.
Unfortunately, it's been.
No,
it's
we-
been
and
an
we
odd-
shouldn't.
And people really should, yeah.
Yeah, and we should.
People shouldn't assume it's gonna occur, so, yeah.
So you don't have any specific questions? I really think we should wait till the June
Right.
town meeting where we have the
Right.
official final numbers.
Right.
Certainly stress the general. It's a high interest budget committee.
Right.
What the structure is. Any other questions? School? All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from May 24th. Questions, comments on those?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from, what was the date? May 24th?
May 24th.
2021?
Second?
Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing no comments about the minutes, all those in favor of approving the minutes of May 24th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous?
For the record,
Abstention.
yes. And Eric was out. Eric was out also.
So we have two abstentions. Right. The last thing on the agenda is the meet and greet with department heads. I've sent you a schedule. What I have so far. July 10th, we have meeting with the police chief, and then followed up by a meeting with Sean on the water, I think. Anybody like to, attend those, please do so. I think you find it very valuable information, especially on the water source. Get a tour of that. John's very articulate, and there's a lot of things coming down the line on water and sewer. I recommend highly that you attend that. And we have something set up at the school to, I guess the school facility director has resigned, and we're in the process of hiring a new facility director. And hopefully by September 25th, the new facility director will be on board, and that September 25th is also, I guess, an open house. But I've ask that we reserve a specific time for the budget committee and maybe some members of the town council to attend that. Questions, comments on that?
Thanks for setting it up. I have a schedule.
As soon as I get the other ones, that's where the public works, and set that up. Another one that I think will be interesting will be the rec department. That's set up for. Questions, comments on that? Any other business? Anyone like to bring up?
Motion to adjourn?
So we have a motion to adjourn by Mike.
Second.
Anyone second it?
Second.
Gary? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thanks, everyone.